Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Jo McMillan, and I'm an alcoholic. That's really a lovely introduction. And when I first met Shar, kindred spirits, she thinks like me, some of that stuff that goes on in our alcoholic brains we could relate to. Well, first of all, I would tell you that I've been sober for 34 years. I sobered up January, that was last month. September, so I don't even know where January came from, September 16th of 1985. For me, that is a lifetime of recovery, right? I have been afforded this incredible life in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've been a member with a home group for the entire time that I've been sober, an early friendship meeting. I've had sponsors. I've not had sponsors, particularly one of my very first sponsors is here tonight, Betty. And what I can tell you is the sponsorship that I've had from people in the meetings has been truly not just being of service to recovery, but a lot of loving kindness, which is something I think is kind of the foundation of why I stayed in Alcoholics Anonymous, because there's a lot of loving kindness here. I sobered up at 24. I grew up in a family with lots of alcoholism. I don't think we labeled it alcoholism, but drinking was just kind of a normal part of our lives. And I've got 3 out of 4 grandparents that are alcoholic. My father's an alcoholic, my sister's an alcoholic, and my brother, I think he diverted by workaholism. And I've got 2 uncles who are still active alcoholics. And so it runs pretty significantly in my family. We're Irish, so that ought to tell you a little something. I don't believe I was born an alcoholic. I think I was predisposed genetically to be an alcoholic. And so as you start practicing drinking, trying it out, thinking it's cool, which I thought it was, one of my first drinks was Rolling Rock that I liked. It was Rolling Rock beer that we found in the woods when we were black, riding dirt, bikes in the dirt and up and down the hills and playing war, and I was a tomboy. So we found a little 6-pack of Rolling Rock, and it was like gold, it was really awesome. And that was also when we were sneaking cigarettes behind the trees, just back a little ways from my house. So I was always someone who was curious about trying stuff. But again, I don't know if that was because of an alcoholic. I think I was just curious. I like to do stuff. I like to check stuff out. I grew up in a family, oldest of 4 kids, and I would say a really loving family. Fairly dysfunctional because my parents were probably unhappy the majority of their marriage. And because my mother has shared this story with me often about my dad being an alcoholic. And he was one of those alcoholics that kind of, he was on the road a lot. He was a traveling salesman. She was home with 4 kids, which had to be just challenging. When he would be on the road, he'd have drinks, and when he'd come home, he'd unwind with a few drinks. He was not an abusive alcoholic, but he was one of those guys who probably diverted emotion and responsibility and the hassle of dealing with stuff by having a few drinks and just falling asleep. So alcoholism didn't look like it was really screwing up my family. But according to, like I said, my mother, who shares too much, way too much, that was kind of the demise of their marriage was alcoholism. And I can see that. I don't live with an alcoholic, and I think if I did, it would be really difficult. So anyway, growing up in a family, growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio, by the time I was about 15, started being interested in experimenting and whatnot, and drove car drunk before I even got my driver's license. Lucky break, I didn't hit anything. Almost a house and a lamppost. but I diverted a consequence. And I think that's probably a lot of my story, is I diverted significant consequences. So if you don't have a lot of consequences glaring, it's hard to call yourself an alcoholic. I was really just somebody who was having fun. And so from 16, through the end of high school, partied a lot. I was kind of one of those people who liked to smoke pot and liked to drink, liked to go to kegers. And as I mentioned tonight at dinner, accidentally to somebody, I like a lot of attention. And the attention I liked was, being cute, being fun, all that. And I think something that we hear often in meetings is you don't always feel that way. And I don't think I always felt that way. I felt a sense of insecurity always. But, with a few drinks, things seemed to be a little bit easier for me to be cuter and to be more fun. And so I think that's really just about the extent of it, And so I did that regularly to the point where I became, as we know now, an alcoholic. I didn't really have a good understanding, or I didn't have a clear understanding that I was becoming an alcoholic, along with drug use. I started smoking pot at 15, and I smoked just about every day until I was 24 when I got sober. And just out of high school, probably end of high school, I was a product of partying in the 80s, so there was lots of drugs involved, from Quaaludes to mushrooms to cocaine to hash, whatever was available. And I had one of those really cute boyfriends who would give me just about whatever I wanted, and mainly the drugs. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had drugs, and that was always something that I was around. So it seemed like it was a fringe benefit of the boyfriend that I had. Not to mention that, it was just a lifestyle that I had gotten used to. I left Cincinnati when I was 21 years old. And I lived in a little suburb town. I moved to Houston, Texas, which was an incredible rude awakening, because I was kind of from the small little suburban town in Ohio in the Midwest to a fast-paced city where 2-for-1 drinks and women dressed up, and the guys in the oil business would really buy you whatever you want. So having kind of a need for attention and easily seduced, I think things started to escalate pretty quickly. With partying, and also included with going out for drinks and discoing. Believe it or not, so I discoed a lot. I remember how excited I was to go to the bar. This is my famous little story. So one night I was really excited to get to the bar, but I wanted to be really extra cute for extra attention. And so I hustled out to Mervyn's, and I bought me a couple pantsuits. One was black with a little nice piping, red piping, and 3/4 length sleeves. Nice belt that you could, pull up to your skinny waist and, look well endowed. And then I had another red one that was kind of shiny red, sleeveless, very hot. And then in the 80s there was the Farrah Fawcett hairdo and eyeshadow and very tall stilettos. Not something I walked in well, but I worked on it. And when you're drinking and you look like that, nobody gives a shit. Especially if they think they're going to get fringe benefits at the end of the night. So, it was pretty dialed in. And that was probably, I would say, a period of time where I thought I felt the best I ever felt. But it was really all artificial. It was really not who I was. It was what I thought I wanted to be, which was cute, sexy, wanted, and fun, So, and meanwhile, I had this dirty little secret going on also. I was bulimic. And so in order to look cute, sexy, and fun, I was also sticking my head in the toilet all the time, binging and throwing up. That was a problem. Drugs and alcohol, not so much, but I didn't like, the ugliness of bulimia. So eventually, I picked up the phone and called for help. Before that, about, I would say the year before I did that, I had started freebasing cocaine. And that was a solution, That wasn't necessarily a problem. That was a solution to the skinny, cute, sexy, and out, having a good time. And most of it was free, so it's not a problem if it's free. And, I had, and I will tell you, I don't like stimulants. I'm not a stimulant person. I like pot, downers, and alcohol. But the stimulants would allow you to take more downers, drink more alcohol, and smoke enough pot so you don't pass out, and so you can disco. So all that in a very short period of time, from 21 to 24, really got to look pretty ugly. I mean, there was that sense of not cute, not sexy, and pretty unhappy. And by the time I was realizing just how much I was spiraling, out of control, I reached out to my family and asked my dad to come help me, and he came out, and he's an alcoholic. He's kind of like he's a very loving man, but he was like, I don't really know what to do, and he knew how to show up. He did know how to show up and tell me, I think you need help, but he didn't know what I should do. So here I was 24 years old, and back then we weren't talking a lot about treatment. We weren't talking a lot about getting recovery. That just didn't exist. I certainly didn't have the notion that I had a problem with substances. But anyway, I saw a brochure somebody had given me. I think maybe it was my mom had sent it to me, and it was in Florida. There was a beach. There was tennis courts. There looked like there was a spa. And so I thought, I'm going to get away for a little while. So that was before they really talked about what rehab was. And so I went away to Florida, and when I got there, it wasn't on the beach. There were, I couldn't, it looked like a nursing home. And it was not really what I thought I was bargaining for. I had actually called an old boyfriend up to drop me off, and unfortunately, he just wanted to drop me off. He didn't want me to stay. Imagine that. I thought it was really cute and still sexy. I went to treatment for 8 weeks in Florida, and that's when I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was also introduced to Overeaters Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, and Narcotics Anonymous. The treatment plan had prescribed that I go to all of those programs since I had all of those problems. There was also Adult Children of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I appreciated because some of this surely was my parents' fault. And my parents also came to Family Week, which was a complete disaster because they were really in this kind of hugely resentful tornado, and my mother had a migraine headache the whole time she was there, and my dad couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there. Excuse me. So anyway, I was the kid who always wanted to fix it. But nevertheless, I went to my first AA meeting. I remember riding on the bus to the AA meeting, and really just kind of no idea. I'm kind of also one of those people who goes along. Well, not anymore, but I used to just kind of go along with what my dad would say, I'm a compliant. So I would comply. So we went to the meetings, and they were, back then you could smoke in meetings, so a ton of smoke. The first meeting that I went to outside of this treatment program was probably 3 times the size of this meeting. They were huge. And it was like being in a foreign world with a foreign language. But nevertheless, I continued to go. I remember after a couple of those bus rides, it finally occurred to me that I wasn't going to be allowed to drink Bailey's in my coffee anymore. And I was kind of bummed out about that. So I really was still not grasping this understanding of what alcohol dependency was. After all, I did go to treatment for an eating disorder. And I didn't realize they would do drug testing there. Actually, I just don't even think it occurred to me. So I go in for an eating disorder, and I come out with many different diagnoses, including bipolar, which come to find out, I'm certainly attention deficit disorder, but when I had somebody ask me after I got out of treatment if I was bipolar, I said, I don't know. I did stimulants, I did downers, I smoked a lot of pot, was sticking my head in the toilet. That's pretty bipolar. Today, respectfully, I would say, I don't have a bipolar disorder because I know people with a bipolar disorder, and it's a struggle. It's a serious struggle. I'm fortunate that I have some challenging thinking. What I can tell you about Alcoholics Anonymous is I dove in. I got out of that treatment center. I didn't know what to do with my life because I went to the bar a lot. I looked, like I said, to be cute and sexy and get lots of attention. And I really did not know what else to do with myself. So I went to meetings. They said go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and I did just that. I went to every meeting I could possibly go to, and I went to all of them, CA, NA, OA, ACOA. I even went to Women for Sobriety, but they were 2 hours long, and I couldn't handle women for 2 hours. And there was only like 5 women there, and they would talk for the entire 2 hours, so that was kind of tough. So just like normal, that first year of recovery, I don't think a lot of change happened other than going to meetings and not picking up a drink and not picking up anything to use. I did try to go to a bar one night, and I drank like, I don't know, 6 or 7 Bloody Virgin Marys. That was god-awful, and I don't think I wanted to do that again. I went another time to get laid, and that didn't work out so well, sober. And so I really had no other alternative, right? So I kept going to meetings. And what I came to find was an understanding of what was happening to me, is that I had become an alcoholic, and it really took me time in meetings before I really recognized that. Treatment, I had to kind of convince the counselor that I was an alcoholic, so that, they check off your first step and second step and third step. But it wasn't until I got into the rooms to start to hear people share about their stories before I really realized what that was for me. And I would say, as I started to take a look at what powerlessness and unmanageability was over drinking and drug use, that was pretty evident. I didn't really have a problem being convinced. I could tell my life was really out of control. And believing in God was something that I could fake. I would say fake, not like lying, faking it, but kind of act as if there was one. And, I would have little signs. The first sign I got was when I left treatment and I was in the airport. The boyfriend who dropped me off, this is my high school boyfriend who lived in Florida, and he was the only person I knew to pick me up. Because somehow, this is how my brain works. I was going to treatment in Fort Myers, but I wanted to fly into Fort Lauderdale so I could get one last little bit of attention from the guy that I used to date way back when. And he complied. He picked me up. We had some drinks, and then he picked me up to take me back. Treatment doesn't change a lot, just so people know, because I had sex in the car on the way back to the airport. So everything you think you're going to do right, yeah. So I didn't drink. And then I was hopeful that, he wanted to spend a little time, drop me off at the curb, said I got to go to a picnic with my girlfriend. So, so first major disappointment in recovery, So I go into the airport, I'm brand new sober, don't know what the hell I'm going to do when I go back to Texas. This boyfriend didn't think I was as cute as I thought he would think I was now that I'm sober. And I'm going back to another boyfriend that my treatment counselors just told me I can't see anymore because he's not sober. And I get in there, I'm scared, and in this little basket there's a little keychain, and it's got my name on it, Mary Jo, 2 words, which is not a name you find often, maybe in Florida because it's the South, and some rainbows. And I have this thing for rainbows. They're probably as good a vision of a higher power as I've ever had. And it inspired me. And of course, I was chatty Cathy and telling the airport cashier how wonderful this sign from God was. And she's like, sure, you want to buy the keychain or not? So I got that, and I have to tell you, that keychain was really my sign. It was a sign that it would be okay. So I got back to Houston. I went to meetings, like I said, 90 meetings in 90 days, and I went probably for the first 5 years of my sobriety, I would say to an average of five or six meetings a week. Met a guy in AA in Texas, and he thought I was cute. And, you can be sober, but when sober and somebody telling you you're cute is even better. And so when he said, why don't you come to Utah and get married? I said, sure. And I remember this little old lady in a meeting said, this is a bad idea. I'm like, but he's sober, and so am I. And he said, lives in Utah, and I think we'll be cute, and we'll be great. So I moved to Utah. Had no idea what to expect when I got here. I went to, and I met Betty, and Betty, I'm not remembering when you moved here, but went to the holiday group. And it was this little tiny meeting in a basement with a whole bunch of old guys. So I don't know if Betty was there yet, but a bunch of old guys is what I remember, because I was 24. So, but I can tell you, in the spirit of Alcoholics Anonymous, they welcomed me. You know, they welcomed me, and I was still cute, and they looked out for me, but it was in a different way than somebody who I thought I could, lure into how cute I was, and I stayed in alcohol. I've stayed in Alcoholics Anonymous because this is a place where I felt like I was going to be okay. Didn't feel okay. Because the first 2 years, I can tell you, I didn't like myself still. I had a lot of insecurity, had a ton of fear. I had no family here. I had a person I had married who I barely knew. I think that was how I escaped my need for looking for outside validation. I got married. And it didn't work out. You know, I managed to leave that marriage after a couple years, and it doesn't take me more than about 10 minutes to find the next person. And so I dove into another relationship because he thought I was really cute. Low bar. What I'll tell you at 2 years sober, no, that was at about 4 or 5 years sober. And I will say that first 5 years sober, a lot of it was really about not picking up a drink. It was a little foreign for me in Utah because I never drank here. And it was also very weird because you had to have alcohol in brown bags and special memberships here. And in Texas, you could drink wherever you want, and it didn't matter. So here was a little bit weird, so it was a little bit easier to stay sober. I got divorced and stayed sober. The guy that I hooked up with while I was separated has been my husband of 29 years. That's because of Alcoholics Anonymous and therapy, I will tell you that. Because at 5 years sober, I could stay sober, but I don't think I knew about how to be an emotional, mature adult. Because I still was one of those people who wanted more attention than probably was satisfactory. And I still needed a lot of validation. And I still wasn't able to kind of regulate my emotional sobriety as an inside job. I'd been through the steps. I had done 1 through 12. I had that. But it was still something more superficial, to be frank, than this deeper understanding of what I was supposed to gain from working the steps. And but I didn't go away. I mean, I think what I felt here more than anything was some kind of safety and a community and a sense of connection. And so I can even remember sponsoring people that first 5 years. And I was pitching the rhetoric just like it had been pitched and given to me. However, it's just because I hadn't acquired experience yet. I mean, I was doing the best I could in early recovery by being of service. And I think that's what we do when we get here. I think I hit my first kind of major sobriety crisis before I got married the second time. And I had to tell my to-be husband that I had had an affair with somebody that he was very close to before I met him. Well, before I actually met him, slept with him, let's say, how it was. And it was hard, because I thought, here I am engaged to be married, and I'm going to have to tell him a secret if I want him to know. And I also thought this might be the end of it. And I think that was probably one of those things that took more than just fake believing in a higher power. I had to really trust that something else would happen even if he left. And I told him, and what happened was is he was very clear about if asked me if it had happened since we had been together. I said no, and he said, if it ever does, I'm out of here. And what I can tell you is it cured me from affairs. And that's the point of, I think, getting honest with ourselves, is I had to become honest enough to look at how, I've been joking about how much attention I like. But what happens when I seek attention outside of myself? Things like having an affair happen, and I could have harmed something that, is now, been my most valuable experience in my life as a marriage. And I did harm the person who was married to this person. Had to make amends for that. And that was a horribly painful thing to do because I hurt somebody that I cared about very deeply. My therapist helped me understand how it wasn't entirely my wrong, but nevertheless, not entirely my wrong, entirely my responsibility. I think that that's the thing that I continue to find in Alcoholics Anonymous through the steps. And, having gone through the steps multiple times and going to meetings, every week for my entire life, there's been a lot to learn. Actually, I tell you, I've forgotten more than I can remember that I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. But I believe that after a period of time, and I can tell you 5 years, 10 years I had my kids. At 10 years I had I had my first daughter at 32 and my second daughter at 35. And I felt like I was having to get sober all over again because I didn't know how to take care of other people. I knew how to take care of me, hence selfish and self-centered. And I was learning how to be in a relationship. So I had these kids and I had to learn a lot. So as I had to discover what that looked like, I needed some help. I needed therapy. I needed support from sponsors and people who could help me kind of stay the path when it was challenging, stay the path when it was not going my way, staying the path when I thought it was his fault. And what I think has been profound in the last, that first 10 years, I learned a lot about recovery in the program. But I would say, for the last 20 years, it's been about practicing a spiritual path. I think I did lip service to believing in a higher power. Serenity prayer was my go-to prayer. I was not much for practicing prayer meditation because I'm a restless person. I would meditate on runs. I would meditate on the run, hear the lion roar at the zoo when I lived by the zoo, and it was like, okay, it's all good. Really simple, because I didn't really know how to develop a practice. It wasn't until I was probably closer to 15, 16 years sober that first of all, I tried to go back to the Catholic Church. That didn't work out so well. A lot of things about the Catholic Church that just didn't speak to me. So religion obviously was out. Some religion. And what I ended up finding was an introduction to some Buddhist practice. That's something I still am interested in and still learning about because I would even say when people say, are you a Buddhist? I'm like, well, I don't know because I'm not very disciplined at the practice that a Buddhist would say that they're disciplined at. But I do practice some of the teachings that I've had. And I've done things from retreats and breath work, 12-step conferences, retreats with a therapist, silent retreats. But a lot of that has just been searching for what I believe step 11 in Alcoholics Anonymous has been trying to tell me all along, was to seek through prayer meditation to improve a conscious contact. And that has been something that I've been able to pursue for the last 15 out of, well, maybe 20 out of 34 years as sober. There's not a lot of wows in my life, right? I would say there is a lot of wows. The wows are different than they were before. The wows are stuff like seeing my daughters become adults and go into their own lives. The wows are having a job that I love and working with people. I happen to run not an outpatient program. I'm a treatment counselor, or I was a treatment counselor. I left the treatment business about 10 years ago and started to run a nonprofit for helping individuals and families into recovery. So I am one of those people who found this work and came into it as a professional. But it is not changed for me to have a personal path of recovery, which has been anchored in 12 steps. And the spiritual practice is trying to really find a sense of peace in my mind. I have one of those minds. In fact, the reason I like my Buddhist teacher is he said our minds are like wild horses. They're just ready to go. They're ready to run. They're just, you can't tame them. They're just always gonna be on the run. And that's what it's like most of the time that I'm awake. It's churning, it's running, it's 5 thoughts in a row. The pause is getting better and better for me because of practice, for practicing how to sit still and do a meditation, which I'm still working on. There's some mornings that I can sit for about 20 minutes, and some of it starts out with 30 seconds of just a mantra and breathing, and then it's like 6 thoughts in a row. And then I go back to the breathing and a mantra, and then there's 10 thoughts in a row, and then I go back to the breathing, and it's like, check the clock. I do it in my bed. So I'm like, and I'm sitting up, right? So I'm trying to do all the right things. And it's not so disciplined, but I can tell you it's a practice. It's something that I think, if I do it, I don't judge whether it's right. Did I do it, did I do it perfectly? The way my teacher says I should do it, I certainly am not doing it I'm not doing it the way he's taught me. But I am giving it the best shot that I got. And at the end of the practice, whether it's full of thoughts or I have a little piece of quiet, I've got like 4 or 5 meditation books right next to my bed, and I'll pull one open and I'll read it for the day. I can tell you 5 minutes later and a cup of coffee, I'm lucky if I remember 4 or 5 words from that meditation. I just have that busy brain that forgets more than I'll remember all day long. But the practice sets in motion that I would say that foundation for my emotional sobriety. And I think in Alcoholics Anonymous we talk about the steps and the traditions and concepts that really are the profound structure of what we've been given in Alcoholics Anonymous. But the practice is very individual. We get lots of suggestions, some that I'm really not gonna consider. And others halfway consider. And then I'll seek out stuff that I really need some help with. But the practice is really an inside job for me. It's really that connection to something greater than myself. I call it the divine. Some days I call it God. Probably God more than Buddha. Some days it's just this spirit of blessing. What I know about the practice of prayer meditation is that I'm a really happy person. I think that's what the promises said that we got to have, is we got to have, this freedom from mental obsession. I can stop myself when I'm on a rant, which is every day about something. I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. People think I'm really nice, but in my head, I am a screaming bitch some days. And because I'm irritable, I wake up really nice and sweet, and then my thoughts start coming. And the irritability doesn't even have to be triggered by anything. It can just start to happen, and because I have that practice, I pull myself in pretty quick. I use my sense of humor a lot. I don't take myself very seriously. A lot of times I'll have a resentment, but it's short-lived because I look at my resentments as something that I'm dissatisfied with. That is truly my self-clinging to what, to something that is not acceptable to me. And when I really am able to let go of that, which is really pretty easily these days, I don't have to be unhappy. If somebody causes me some unhappiness or some kind of discomfort, I can check myself pretty easily and have compassion for them. I might distance myself from them, but I have compassion for them. So I really think kind of as I wrap it up is, Alcoholics Anonymous has given me a road map to pay attention to pay attention on a regular basis to some things that all of us practice, to kind of check myself. And one of the things to check is that I thought if I ever left these rooms, I don't think I would be safe from drinking. I mean, I'm really sure about that. You know, I loved marijuana, so now we have cannabis all available to us, you know, and I even have people in my family who enjoy it. And, you know, me too, but not for 34 years, because I didn't smoke, you know, I smoked to quiet my mind. I smoked because it brought me a sense of serenity. And I can't turn to substances for a sense of serenity, so I have to practice some other things. And so the journey has been to achieve some sense of peace and serenity and joy in my life. And that practice is really very simply stated in step 11. And through the understanding of you know, steps 2 and 3. You know, I did come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, and I'm pretty sane for a person who thinks like I do, and like most of us do with alcoholism. I don't have to drink or use in order to change how I'm thinking. I can ride it out, so if it's really messed up, I can settle down in a hurry because I have a practice that helps me do that. And as a result, I don't stay in a lot of discomfort. But I'm not afraid of discomfort. I will say that. Discomfort is part of what we all deal with. I lost my sister a year and a half, about 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years in April. She was 18 months younger than me. We used together a lot. We were sober together. And she returned to substances after she had struggled with chronic pain and got prescribed opiates. And it was really hard not to resent the disease, her. It was easy to resent the disease, but it was hard not to resent her because some things were really awful during the last years of her life. But I can tell you what I was able to find through the support of a sponsor who said, you know, you can choose how you accept her in your life. You know, she has chosen that her life is using. Her life is going to be continued to be in that state. And I didn't want to, I knew I was going to lose her sooner than later, and I didn't want to have that resentment and discomfort from wishing I had told her how much I loved her instead of telling her how pissed I was at her, you know? So even in the most difficult situations, I was able to find a way to love her and accept her, even when things she was doing was really unacceptable to me. I got to spend a month or a couple weeks with her when she broke her neck after a fall, on pain pills. She didn't even know she broke her neck. But I got to do things to be supportive of her instead of so angry. And I think the only way to do that is to have a practice where I let go of those things like fear, resentment, and not going my way, or it being unacceptable, or a judgment, because I'm a pretty judgy person. You know, I have a judgment about somebody, and my practice says, So what's the point? You know, what's the benefit of having a judgment about them? You know, and some of it's just self-preservation, or it's my automatic response. And so, you know, I don't have to live that way today. You know, it sounds. I think at the end of the day, my life's kind of boring. You know, I don't have huge excitement in my life, but I have wonderful things in my life. You know, I look forward to going home every night and seeing my husband and my dog. I look forward to talking to my kids. I look forward to my friends who I've had a lifetime of sobriety, shared sobriety with. You know, people who've been in my life that, you know, we see each other, haven't seen each other in, you know, months or even years. And there's this love between us, and that's never lost. Alcoholics Anonymous is that kind of gift. And I know a lot of people who have been fortunate to have it, and I know a lot of people who aren't fortunate and who have not been able to stay in these rooms and have this miraculous life. And it saddens me and breaks my heart. And at the same time, my humility is about staying and continuing to be I think, as Shara mentioned, a woman in recovery. So if I'm in recovery, other people see I'm in recovery, and they can come talk to me about what they could do for themselves in recovery. And that's how we carry this message. And I'm a person who believes in practicing it to the best of my ability in all of my affairs. Not perfectly, but to the best of my ability. And I have a full and thankful heart today, and I can tell. Somebody hit my car in an AA meeting on Saturday morning. They backed out or whatever. They didn't leave me a note, and I was like, damn, it's only 6 months old. It's perfect, The car is just perfect, and it's like, yeah, I'm like, wish they would have left a note, And yet here I am, and actually the guy who I might have accused was coming out, and his car was beat up. I'm like, yeah, it was blue because I could tell the back of the car, and I'm like, he doesn't look like somebody who's got the benefits of the life that I have, and I didn't even go ask him. It's not anything, one way or the other, but I wanted to attach it to something, rather than, okay, so your car got hit, it's a couple nicks on your car. When I want, I can go pay $1,000 or whatever it's going to cost to have it painted. That's a privilege. I have those privileges in my life as a result of being sober, instead of obsessing about how, now I have this stupid nick on my car, because it really doesn't bring me happiness. My car doesn't bring me happiness. And those things that I think would bring me happiness don't bring me happiness. It's that inside job. It's that practice of peace of mind. And I think if I'd close with anything tonight, I would say that's the gift of my emotional recovery. And as a result of being sober and having recovery that's emotionally a practice of finding a way of living in a peace of mind has afforded me 34 years sober, and I won't be stopping anytime soon. I'll continue to keep coming. Thank you.